set board docs that you'll hear your project action tonight.
All right. While we're working out the board docs, we'll start with roll call.
Amy Riddle Swanson,
Here.
Mark Hillman, Angie Skillings. Here. Carl Palmer,
Here.
Abe Smith,
Here.
Dominique Stewart,
Here.
Rachel Henderson,
Here.
Dale Dahlke,
Here.
Amber Kirsty.
Here. The quorum, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the mission statement, the school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Any changes or revisions to the agenda order? Seeing none. Next, we have, recommendations and commendations.
We did meet with our QIC group last week, and we have recommendation for commendation, but the person was not able to be here tonight, so we postponed it until the second meeting in October.
Right, and then we have our student council representatives here for our student representative communications.
Good evening, I'm Katrina Jaskowski, and with me is Kashia John. We appreciate the opportunity to address you today.
First, we'd like to share some exciting news about this year's homecoming. We've received fantastic feedback, with many saying it was the best homecoming yet. The event was won by the seniors, and student participation reached an all-time high. Our king and queen were Kashia Jean and Kevin Bain.
Moving on to other announcements, we want to highlight the impressive work of our Science Olympiad team. They've begun their practice for the upcoming competition season and have an incredible 62 students involved, forming 4 full teams. Notably, there is a complete team of freshmen with 20 members. They're dedicating to upholding our school's tradition of excellence in STEAM fields.
Additionally, we'd like to recognize the outstanding achievements of our girls golf team members who made academic all-conference. Those students are Kaya Hayden, Sierra House, Maggie Winston, Erin McNally, Jalen Spees, and Abigail Sutton.
Finally, we'd like to address the issue of potential budget cuts. We firmly believe that maintaining our elective classes is crucial. These classes are not just courses, they're opportunities that countless students look forward to each year.
As students within the SDMA, we share the concern about these potential cuts. Elective classes provide valuable experiences that enhance our education and personal growth. We kindly ask the school board to consider alternative solutions to preserve these vital programs.
Thank you for your time and attention. We hope our input will be considered as you make important decisions regarding the budget. We look forward to working collaboratively to ensure that our school continues to offer a diverse and enriching educational experience for all students. Thank you.
Thanks, girls. And I just want to mention with the budget cuts, I know that we sent out information last week talking about the budget and talking about future issues with the budget. We do expect to be able to balance this year's budget. So any talk about budget cuts would be in the future, not this school year. We are facing funding challenges, and I know the board is working hard to try to do something about that, but thank you for sharing that. But please make sure people know we're not looking at making big reductions this school year.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking the opportunity to share with us. I really appreciate that. All right, up next we have community communications. We have 2 speakers tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
Point of order, you forgot to highlight on you.
Thank you. I did miss the highlight on you. That's fine. I don't know how I did that. Prior to our student representative communications, we have our October highlight on youth.
Thank you, and thanks, Amy. The October highlight on youth, like previous months, is full of numerous examples of student success from our school district. We also, this is available for the public, and you can see there's information about homecoming, about the visit from Governor Evers to the middle school, also outdoor activities at our elementary schools, and just a whole host of things going on in our schools over the first month of the year. So thank you to the principals, thank you for the staff members for putting this together. It sure is nice to be able to show our community these examples of student success.
Thank you. Now we have community communications. We have 2 speakers signed up tonight. First up is Josie Pillman.
Hi, I'm Josie Pillman, and I live in Knapp. Dr. Zadowski and members of the board. I found another book in Knapp Elementary about Thomas Jefferson. The title is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Everything. That is a little bit fuzzy, but inside I found some more untruths. I quote, Jefferson was a strong leader with many ideas. He believed in separation of church and state. That means that all people should be free to practice whatever religion they like. Religion should not be a part of government, unquote. That is not what separation of church and state meant by Jefferson. You remember the founding fathers were struggling with if the state should tell the church how it needs to believe, not that religion should not be part of government. There were not yet public schools at that time, but when they came, all the wholesome goodness of sound religion should be a part of our public schools. There is nothing in the law against teaching, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not be morally and sexually impure. Thou shalt be morally and sexually pure. Why can't we teach our children to be kind, to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, have self-control and sound character? Why can't we teach our children the truth about rainbows and gender? The rainbow was put in the sky by the Lord as a reminder of his promise to never again destroy the world by a flood. He destroyed the world because the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every intent of the thoughts in his hearts were only evil continually. When you see a rainbow in the sky, it is a reminder of God's promise. In our culture today, the rainbow is said to mean something entirely different. It is said to exemplify gay pride, whatever that is. It is an opportunity to flaunt and celebrate various sexual sins. It is an opportunity to poke the Lord of the Bible in the eye. This is the very Lord who put the rainbow in the sky in the first place. I would think the creator of the rainbow would know what it represents. I reclaim the rainbow. I reclaim the rainbow in Knapp Elementary School. When you put rainbows on the bulletin boards, you have the opportunity for a teaching moment. You should put Noah's Ark under the rainbow. Then the children know exactly what the truthful message of the rainbow is. It is a reminder of God's promise to never again destroy the world by a flood. If questions arise from the children regarding the rainbow, you can set the message straight. You can talk to them about keeping promises. That is the truthful message of the rainbow and something a little child can understand. The SDMA Gender Policy Plan is not built on truth or kindness or sound morals. It needs to be revised. We need to teach our children the truth about rainbows and gender. Thank you very much.
And our next speaker tonight is Mike Cooper.
Mike Cooper, Menomonie. Good evening. It is truly breathtaking to see where school districts are today compared with 50 or 100 years ago. Today being nothing much more than yes men or women for the state and federal mandates that control the basic operation of the district. How did this come about? The Founding Fathers created a government that was focused on local control, but the progressive movement of the last 100 years has slowly been usurping that control and concentrating it in the state and federal level. This is very evident in the operation of local school districts. What really do you have control over? Names of school logos, funding for sports complexes. There is a tool available to you, and it is actually a responsibility of yours when you become a board member. Matter of fact, any elected official has a responsibility to the public, that responsibility to the public. That responsibility is the principle of intersection. It has originally been clarified and put forward in a publication by those in the city of Magdeburg, Germany. It is called the Magdeburg Confession. The confession states that the lesser magistrate has a responsibility to interpose between the illegal or evil rules or laws put forth by the government. A great example of that is from the state of Wisconsin prior to the Civil War. On March 11, 1854, a runaway slave, Joshua Grove, was arrested by federal marshals in Racine, Wisconsin. He was taken to the Milwaukee County Jail. A crowd of about 5,000 people who had learned of the arrest gathered, and they broke him out of jail. Glover made it out of Wisconsin into Canada, where he lived free until his natural death. The federal government decided to charge a ringleader of the people who broke Glover out, a man named Sherman Booth. He was charged under the Federal Fugitive Slave Act. In a historic act of interposition, the state, the Wisconsin legislature, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court defied the federal government and the U.S. Supreme Court by interposing for Booth and declaring the unjust Federal Fugitive Slave Act to be void and of no force. Resolved that this assumption by jurisdiction by the federal judiciary in this case and without process is in fact an undelegated power and therefore without authority, void, and of no force. And that was a legislation passed by the Wisconsin legislature March 14, 1859. So where do you fall? Do you fall on the side of the lesser magistrate of the state of Wisconsin or the federal government? Thank you.
Thank you.
She still can.
Yeah, before we proceed, we've got a board docs issue. Is it just
It's just me.
you? Anyone
I
else?
had an issue, but it fixed itself.
She
You just let it sit there and it just came on?
rebooted clear your cache.
Okay, what happened to me was I just had to X out of whatever it came up, and then it came up, and then I had to use my phone to do the jumble.
Yeah, so you
Thing, and then it came
logged
up.
in. I mean, she shut all the way down and relogged in.
Katie, do you have any suggestions?
Not that she hasn't tried based on what that we recommended last time.
I just have the blank screen. Just the blank screen that says board docs. I authenticated and put my password in and it just goes up to the blank screen.
You clear your cache, is that?
So we could do voice votes for any, maybe we only have a couple votes, but do you feel like you can, because as we look at the expense documents?
Yeah.
I tried both. I should have both open because they're both.
You don't want to call IT.
Google's not the answer.
Jenny does have paper documents as well for anything. So if you have any questions, Andy, we can get you a copy.
Can I just go in from my email? Well, this is the proposal.
I'll just take it away. Yeah. We can look at each other's screen.
Okay. Do you mind if we proceed with the meeting? Okay, and then Carl's got the paper back up, or if there's any questions, you can look at someone else's screen. Our next on the agenda, I'm gonna try not to mess this up again. We have revenue and expenditure reports for the months ended September 2023.
Okay, we'll take a look at the revenue report first. As you can see there, there's been several local revenues received into our general fund in the amount of $104,615.27. We've had some gift revenues received in the amount of $22,080.50, and we have received our state equalization aid here in September. It's not reflected the number is not reflected on this report because bank statements were not available in time to prepare this report. So yes, we did get it. No, it's not on this report, but just know that it did come. Moving on then to the expenditure report by object. If you'd like to take a look at that report. This includes all funds, and through the end of September, we are at 11.68% compared to the same time at 12.46%. So expenditures over all the funds are slightly down compared to last year, but we do have variances in purchases at the time, plus one-time billing of purchases. Again, some months, a bill might get paid on the 1st of the next month rather than the 30th, which would be included here. So nothing out of the ordinary that way. And then if we take a look at the expenses broken down by object, for our general operations fund 10, our overall percent, we're at 11.53 compared to 13.65. And then for special education, we're at 8.51 compared to 10.26 for the same time last year. And then Fund 50 expenses are running a little bit higher than the same time last year. We're at 11.52 compared to 10.25. Again, nothing out of the ordinary, just one-time billing and also timing.
Does anyone have questions or comments they want to make about the revenue and expenditure reports? Thank you, Leah. And next we have our monthly employment report for the month of September.
Any questions on the monthly employment report this month?
All right. Seeing none. Next up, we have our consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Amy, second by Amber. Consent agenda tonight includes minutes from our regular board meeting of September 11th, special board meeting of September 25th, financial reports, including general fund checks in the amount of $2,740.83 and cash receipts in the amount of $188,118.06. No donations over $1,000 in the month of September, and then certification of safety drills at Wakanda and Downsville Elementary. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. Do you want to, most of us vote in Word docs and just get a voice vote from Angie? Is that okay? Or? Is that all right with you? Okay. It's still not in?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just mean, are you still out, still not getting in there?
No, it just gives me the board off screen.
Weird. All right, and motion passes 8-0. Next, we have our personnel consent agenda. There's no need for an action because we have nothing here, right? And moving on to our action agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve final budget revisions for the 2022-23.
Second.
Motion by Abe, second by Dominique. Discussion on, or do you want to, do either of you want to say anything to start out with?
Just that we went through these last month. Leo was not here, but I was able to inform the board on the different changes. Was there a suggestion last time about in the future of this report changing it a little bit? Perhaps not, but if there's any other questions, Leah is here tonight. Otherwise, like we talked about, really it's just a matter of most of these have to do with the changes related to the grants and the Leah, was there any other changes since last time the board reviewed this?
No.
No changes.
I think maybe what you're thinking of, Joe, is I had asked if in future years, with this report, we could, with the final budget revisions report for the school year, if we could see total budget revisions by fund, and in particular just with Fund 10, since there's so many of them, kind of like what it comes down to in the end, up and down, would be helpful. Not a big deal though. Any questions or comments about the budget revisions? Seeing none, let's vote on that. Oh, you're motion. Okay, all right. And motion passes 8-0. Next up, we have a review of translation tools available in SDMA.
So first of all, one of the goals that we had in our district work plan was to provide a report to the board by the end of October about the translation tools available for students and families in our district, and that's what this report is. I'm very happy to share that we have some very powerful tools, and you know, sometimes we talk about technology, both good and bad, and this is one thing that's very, very good. And I'd like to thank Katie Krieger and all the other directors who had a hand in putting this together over the last couple months. And I'm happy to say that with my Skyward messages that go out to families, Skyward is now set up so that if a family selects a particular language in our Skyward program, they actually get the message in that preferred language. That's just one of the tools. But as the report details, and we've also shared this with staff, kind of a different report that provides more specific directions for staff. Things like Google Translate is a great example. The referendum guide that we shared out last week, not only were we able to share that in English, but we also were able to have the guide translated to Hmong and to Spanish. There are other apps with our Google apps, with Seesaw, and we also have dedicated translation services in the district through our partnership with Propio. I know Tonya also has been active in talking with other school districts and other vendors to make sure that if we have a situation where translation services are needed for our special services, that we're able to accommodate those requests. I know Katie and Tony both had some examples. Could you maybe provide the board with just an example of how this is being applied in our schools beyond what I already shared?
Sure. I met with a few of the teachers at the middle school that are working with an EL student, and they brought the EL student in to meet with me as well. And they are now in some of his classes using Google Meet to transcribe everything they say. So he can look at his screen and he gets captions in Spanish now so that he can fully understand what's happening in class.
Anything else to add to that? So as you can see, there are a number of different tools that we are using, and our staff, I know, wants continued professional development on this. I will say that because we have so few EL students and EL families, it really is more based on specific need. But I think as we see more and more language needs, I think this is perfect timing for us to have our tools organized, which they are now, and we'll be able to point our staff members, families, and anybody else in the correct direction as needed. Any questions from board members?
I suspect the answer is, as you said, your family message went out in the translated. So is the family guide to the tools being translated?
It certainly can be.
I mean, that was my thought.
Yeah.
This is in English, and it tells you if you can't speak English, how to use the tool.
Well, this is meant to be a school board report, and you all speak English, so.
Right, no,
We did it in English, but because it's on a Google Doc, it's a matter of 1 second. Just, how many language choices were there? Katie?
Hundreds.
I mean, it's amazing, when I translated the referendum guide, I mean, there's a pull-down menu, there are hundreds of languages, you just pick which ones you want. That's probably the most time-consuming piece, is finding it in the list.
One thing I was wondering for the very important kind of official communications through Skyward, if there's an opportunity to have a native speaker just double check that the machine translation is sane, because it is fantastic, but there's always cases where it's like, that's not quite the intent that we had, so.
Yeah, depending on what the communication is, I suppose that's something we could do. We don't necessarily have that service available for all languages, but I think there is a place for that.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Carl said. That was my first question. I didn't remember the email about that, and think this program is awesome, but I wanted to make sure too that that guide with all those directions could be in a different language for those that want to utilize it. So, you took the wind out of my sails, but yeah, I agree with that. Thank you.
And like for the referendum guide, we chose Spanish and Hmong because those are the languages that are most common outside of English. And I think when we host something on our website, I think it would make sense to have those links there with it. Anything else from the board tonight?
I'm curious, I appreciate the example of like the sort of how it gets used in the real world. Do either of you or Joe have like any kind of anecdotal feedback from families who are using it, or students who are using any of these tools, and how it's going?
I would just say, in speaking with our EL teachers, they're extremely excited about this.
Okay.
To the point where I think they're probably bucking Katie so much because they want more and more and more. But because they are very connected to the families that they serve. And so they're really, really excited about this opportunity and these options for families. I think many of our students are very tech savvy, that they're figuring out a lot of this probably before we did. But I would say our EL teachers are extremely excited about this. So.
And I could share, like, one of the math teachers that I met with was spending hours trying to translate, like, worksheets that were like PDFs, because it's a little more difficult than hitting that drop down in a Google Doc. And we came up with different methods for it to take seconds. And she also met with that student that day, so he was very excited that he was gonna be able to do his homework.
Thank you. Other questions or thoughts about the translation tools? Moving on, we have a review of the 2023-24 budget timeline.
Thanks, Rachel. And board members, you probably get sick of seeing this document. You see it numerous times throughout the year, but this is just a reminder that October is a big month for the budget. Even though the timeline runs from November through October, there's a lot of work. I mean, you participate in that work. The budgets start overrunning each other, especially in the spring and summer. But, coming up at the next meeting, that is when the board, that's when the board will consider the budget for 2023-2024 and set the levy. And then once that's done in November, we'll certify the tax, or we'll get the certified tax levy to the municipalities. So we're kind of getting to the end of the timeline for the 2023-2024 budget, even though there's a lot of planning already happening for 24-25. But again, just a reminder of the steps that have been taken. It's a very rigorous process. It involves staff members, principals, building level, district level, and certainly the board level. And we're looking forward to getting that done at the next meeting. Any questions?
If there's no questions or thoughts on the budget timeline, we'll move on to a discussion of the SDMA referendum guide that was released last week.
So like Rachel said, we sent a referendum guide to all district families last week. And at the board meeting a couple weeks ago, we talked about the potential for a referendum, and I really appreciated the input that board members gave about the importance of providing information to the community ahead of the community survey that will be coming out next week. So under that direction, the directors and I worked on the referendum planning guide. I also appreciate the feedback that I received from board members, and hopefully it helped explain exactly where we're at with school finances, the process. Again, we just talked about the budget timeline, that's a big part of it, but we also did want to share some of the challenges coming forward in the 2024-2025 school year. I don't know, board members, if any of you had any feedback over the past week, or if you had any additional input related to the referendum guide.
I didn't hear any feedback, but I thought it was very well done. I thought it was accurate. I thought it was detailed enough, but not too much. It laid it out there what we're trying to sort through, so I thought it was good.
You said this was sent to district families. I think you meant, primarily parents, family members of kids in the district and teachers. I'm curious if you had an opportunity to share this with other, like the county board or the city council or other kind of groups in the area who might might not have kids in the district themselves, might be interested in what's going on.
I did share it on the district's Facebook and Twitter accounts, or social media. I guess it's not Twitter anymore. I shared it there. In terms of a targeted approach, I have not. I take that back. I did have a meeting with Representative Clint Moses and shared with him our concerns, and he's been very receptive to having conversations in the budget process for the state budget. So I was able to share with him because I would guess that he'll probably receive communications from constituents throughout this process. I have also talked to City Administrator Atkinson and Mayor Knack, not necessarily in a formal, here's the referendum guide, what questions do you have? I did talk to Mr. Atkinson about potentially meeting with city administration and city council. I do think, there's more work that needs to be done though in terms of getting information back from the survey, and then, whatever resolution the board may decide to consider in November, and then I think at that point, probably take it to that next step.
That makes sense, thank you.
Have you yourself gotten any feedback?
Mostly positive, and certainly there's concern about the funding situation for schools in Wisconsin, and particularly what we're looking at in Menomonie. I was a little surprised to hear from the student council reps that students are actually talking about it, and I think it's important to hear that student voice, and I'm glad that students read the emails that come out related to district operations. But I also thought, like we did tonight, I thought it was important to make sure that, even though we know there's a funding issue coming forward, I think it's important that people know that we're doing our best to be proactive and try to solve it. And, I think, like we put in the guide and like is in the survey, it's really up to our community to determine, what our next steps will be. And I think providing the community an opportunity to determine, what our funding levels are going to be is a logical next step. Certainly that's a decision that the board needs to make, not the superintendent. But if a resolution is passed in November for a potential referendum, that I think that's where the community voice will come into play. But particular to your question, Amy, what I received is that people felt it was very readable, it made sense, and I think some people were surprised at how the revenue limits have not kept up with inflation. And even though we hear school funding, and it's not just Wisconsin, you hear about school funding, it's an ongoing challenge. I think it's pretty clear that that challenge has gotten more difficult in recent years.
Any other questions or thoughts on the referendum guide? Seeing none, we do have on the agenda to move into closed session. So before we do that, just to review upcoming dates. There is no school for staff and students on this Friday, October 13th, is that right? Yes. I'm prepared, really. Next, Monday the 16th, professional development for staff, no school for students. Also on the 16th, the diversity committee meeting here at 3:50. The health and medical committee is meeting here on October 19th. And our next board meeting is at 5:45 on October 23rd.
And Rachel, we did just get confirmation that the diversity committee meeting is going to be moved to Stout. Many of our staff members are going to be at Stout. We're doing some joint activities for that professional development. So for the convenience of staff members, we will have it there. Tony will be sending out an agenda and specific information about where the meeting will be held.
So, and I've forgotten already, the board members who are, well, anyway, board members who are on the diversity committee have that information now, exactly who we are.
And I just made contact with.
Yep, I'll be sending out an email.
Okay, great.
I'll be looking for that today.
So, do we need we can take a quick break, do we need a motion first to move into closed session? No, we wait. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break.